What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded, and today we will discuss the debt ceiling. What's in it? I don't know, but let's watch, let's learn, let's read, let's find out together. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff, comment, share, blah, blah, blah. It's you guys who grow the channel, so help a brother out. This is according to the BBC, and I will put the article in the description box. All right. Here we go. Debt ceiling is suspended until 2025. So they didn't raise the debt ceiling, they suspended it, which means that it's not going to raise. Every so often, U.S. Congress must vote to raise or suspend the ceiling so it can borrow more to pay its bills. Currently, the debt is at $31.4 trillion. This includes paying for federal employees. It includes paying for the military, Social Security, and Medicare, as well as interest on the national debt and tax refunds. But in recent years, this has become increasingly difficult because the two sides cannot agree on the terms. In the deal that passed through Congress, they have not raised the limit to a certain level, but suspended it entirely until 2025. This allows them to pay their bills until that date and know that the next fight over raising the ceiling will not interfere with the presidential election. And the rest of the world can breathe a sigh of relief once the deal is signed, because a U.S. default would have a global impact. Now, the debt deal was signed already. So here's what's in it, in case you didn't know and in case you're curious. Let's see who got sold out. Here's a hint. It's you and me. Shh, don't tell anyone. Caps on spending but not defense. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor. Tupac Shakur. Republicans wanted a freeze on overall spending for 10 years with a rise in defense spending and cuts to other budgets. Got to build those bombs and missiles, man, because we got to make sure we can blow other people up. That's really the key thing. Make sure we can kill a bunch of folks. The agreement keeps non-defense spending flat next year with a 1% rise in 2025. The implications of this belt tightening is yet unclear. Defense spending would increase to $886 billion, which amounts to about a 3% rise on this year's. There are no budget caps after 2025. The legislation will result in $1.5 trillion in savings over a decade. This is according to the Independent Congressional Budget Office. Full funding for the medical care of military veterans would also increase, in line with what President Biden had sought. Now here's what I got to say. It's going to save $1.5 trillion over 10 years. But at what cost to social services? At what costs to social well-being of the citizens of this country? At what cost? While funding and raising the amount we're giving to the defense contractors. It's a dirty game, y'all. It's a dirty, dirty game. Unspent COVID funds are returned. With the public health emergency officially ended in May, Republicans had argued for the relief funds that were not spent to be returned. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated this will amount to about $30 billion. Okay, we didn't spend the COVID funds, return it. I don't take an issue with it at all. I just wish they would ask for those companies that misspent it to give it back as well, because it was intended for a purpose, and we learned that it wasn't used for that purpose. And so we should get that money back. But maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. It says welfare is tinkered with, but no real overhaul. A central demand of Republicans was to toughen up the distribution of welfare benefits by attaching strings. That would mean able-bodied recipients having to work to get food and healthcare help. You know, I really can't understand why we're so willing to give subsidies to oil companies and subsidies via the SNAP benefits that we do pay to low wage workers that work at Walmart and Target and all of these other stores, and why we subsidize airline companies and all these other companies and banks when they go bankrupt. We subsidize everybody. But when it comes to the least of us, it's interesting, isn't it? When it comes to the very least of us all, that's where we want to make cuts, and that's where we want to issue requirements, and that's who we want to punish. Nobody wants to be on SNAP. That's not an aspiration. That's the bare minimum, man. Don't y'all get it? Why is there so much hate in your heart? Aren't y'all conservatives supposed to be like Christian and, you know? Didn't Jesus say, what you do to the least of you, you do unto me? Didn't he say that? Isn't that in the Bible somewhere? I don't get y'all, bro. I don't get y'all at all. So they're putting work requirements on food stamps, essentially. Democrats were adamant this should not be on the table. The welfare being looked at by Republicans included Medicaid, which was health care for poor Americans, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and temporary assistance for needy families. Those are the people they want to harm. The very meekest of us. Says Medicaid remains untouched in the deal, but the age at which work requirements are included for those on SNAP was raised from 50 to 54. So now if you're 54 or under, there's work requirements for you to get SNAP. These guys are just hypocrites. I don't know how anybody is like, yeah, those are our people. That's who I want to stand behind. I really don't. Funds to enforce tax rules on wealthy Americans. Let's see what happened with that. They're calling this a win for Democrats, was securing $80 billion for a decade to help the Internal Revenue Service to enforce the tax code in last year's Inflation Reduction Act on the richest. Says the Republicans wanted to dump the $80 billion, claiming it would be used to hire an army of agents to audit Americans. Here again, we want to hurt poor people by putting work requirements, right? But then we want to help rich people by cutting the IRS funding so they can't really audit very wealthy folks. And then they tell y'all that's so that the IRS can't audit you poor people, who we also are placing work requirements on so that you can get your SNAP. I got some screws loose. Easier to get energy project permits. New rules will make it easier for both fossil fuel and renewable energy projects to get licenses. This has long been advocated by Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Of course. It will basically streamline the environmental review process and potentially get projects off the ground in a faster time. Why are we still fucking with fossil fuel when we know that we're having a climate crisis? Again, we're dodo birds. Things not in the deal. Student loan relief. Republicans had wanted the Biden plan to forgive student debt to be rescinded, but it survived. Tax hikes. Democrats had targeted wealthy Americans for new tax hikes, but there are no new tax hikes here. No new tax hikes. Of course, why would we ask the rich people to pay more? That's ridiculous. Clean energy. Republicans had wanted to repeal key provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy and climate provisions, but it was unscathed. Again, I'm going to put this article in the description box because there's more, there's more takes on it, and you can read it for yourself and kind of come to your own decision. But it's always funny to me who they'll protect and whose neck they're trying to come for. And it is always working people and poor working people who bear the burden of this wonderful country, which seems to always favor the very richest people. It's frustrating. I wish my working brothers and sisters would get on the same page and understand that this affects us all. Even if you're not dirt poor, this affects you. Anyway, I'm Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember, the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there can be no union without you and I front and center. Peace.